Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we take your stack of information and turn it into actionable, fascinating insight. Today, we're wading into a truly polarizing substance. Yeah. It's a glittering white crystal that, it lives in the pantry or it hides in your takeout. And it's responsible for some of the most satisfying food you'll ever eat.
It really is. It's a substance that defines an entire culinary aesthetic, particularly across Asia. Culturally, it's celebrated in places like Thailand, where it's affectionately called phung nua.
Phung nua, which means something like the flavor powder.
Right? Exactly, the flavor powder.
But here in the West, it's a totally different story. It's often met with skepticism, fear, sometimes outright condemnation. People wrongly dismiss it as some kind of poison.
And that contrast is just fascinating because, chemically speaking, this substance it's a molecular genius. We are, of course, diving deep into monosodium glutamate, MSG.
And the fundamental question we need to answer for you today is this: how? How can a tiny dusting of this powder, which on its own is odorless and flavorless, how does it instantly transform something like bland bone broth into, a world-class emperor's soup?
It feels like a beautiful world-class deception happening right on your palate.
It does. And our mission is to understand that magic, to strip away the confusion and just look at the cold, hard biological facts.
And we've broken this down into 3 crucial steps that explain its power, its side effects, and, of course, its hidden dangers.
Okay, so we're going to explore 3 main aspects. First, we have the biohack, how MSG basically tricks your taste receptors. Then second, the excitatory spark, why it can cause that strange response in your nervous system. And finally, the stealth sodium, the real reason behind that overwhelming, desperate thirst. Okay, let's unpack this with chapter 1, the biohack. This is where it all begins, right? The moment the crystal hits your mouth.
That's right. The second you drop that MSG crystal into a liquid a soup, or just your own saliva, it immediately dissociates. It splits apart.
Into 2 things.
Into 2 separate components. One part is sodium, which we'll definitely come back to later. And the other, the absolute star of the show, is free glutamate.
And we need to be really clear here. Glutamate itself is not some scary chemical made in a lab.
Not at all. It's a totally natural amino acid. Our bodies use it constantly. In fact, you find huge amounts of naturally occurring free glutamate in some of the most delicious foods on the planet.
Like what?
Well, think about cured meats. A really good aged Parmesan cheese, ripe sun-dried tomatoes, or even just naturally fermented soy sauce.
So our bodies have evolved to recognize glutamate as a good thing. It's a biological signal.
It's the deepest evolutionary signal. Its presence is like a molecular flag waving that just says, hey, this is protein, this is nutrition, this is good for you. That flavor is what we now call umami, the 5th basic taste. Our tongues are literally hardwired to find it.
Okay, so if it's natural on Parmesan, what makes the pure MSG powder so powerful? Where does the hack part come in?
The hack is purity and quantity delivered all at once. In a block of Parmesan, the glutamate is all bound up with other molecules. It's released slowly as you chew.
Oh, okay.
But when you add pure MSG, you're delivering a massive concentrated payload of free glutamate directly and instantly.
It's like a flash flood of flavor information.
Precisely. This sudden flood binds intensely with the specialized umami sensors on your tongue. We don't need the clinical names, but you should know these receptors are incredibly specific. They're designed to detect one single molecule, glutamate.
I get it. So the natural signal from, say, aged meat might be a gentle hum, but this becomes an overwhelming siren.
That is the perfect analogy. This intense binding basically shouts at the brain that the dish contains extremely high-quality, rich protein.
And the brain is just fooled.
It's completely fooled by the strength of that signal, and its response is immediate. It's visceral.
So you get that rush of satisfaction. Your mouth starts watering.
And you get a strong, undeniable command from your survival brain to just keep eating. It's the perfect appetite hack. It convinces your body it's getting a huge nutritional reward, even if, as one source put it, the only protein in there is the spirit of chicken.
Okay, that explains the flavor. But the story obviously doesn't end on the tongue.
Yeah.
So if the tongue is the first victim of the hack, what happens when that glutamate crosses into the bloodstream? This brings us to chapter 2, the excitatory spark.
Right, and this is where we shift focus completely. We go from flavor perception to neurochemistry. Once that glutamate molecule is absorbed, we have to remember its other really profound function in the body. It is the single most important excitatory neurotransmitter in the entire human nervous system.
Wait, so it's not just a taste molecule, it's a critical communication line for our central nervous system.
Exactly. It's what helps the brain with critical processes. Things like alertness, learning, memory formation, staying focused. You can think of it as the brain's internal espresso shot. It keeps the engine running fast and efficiently.
That makes perfect sense for normal function. But let's get to the skepticism here. If it's natural, why do so many people report these negative reactions? What happens when we hit an overload threshold? Like eating a huge, heavily seasoned meal on an empty stomach.
Well, when you spike your blood levels of glutamate that quickly, far beyond what you'd get from a piece of cheese, that temporary high concentration can trigger an abnormal physiological response.
And this is where we have to talk about the elephant in the room, the whole Chinese restaurant syndrome thing.
Yes. And that term is, it's outdated and problematic, but the symptoms it described are very real for a subset of people who are sensitive. That surge of glutamate can show up as temporary discomfort, maybe a sudden numbness or tingling in the back of the neck, flushing, a weakness in the limbs, or even heart palpitations.
It sounds alarming, but you made a crucial distinction earlier. Is this a true food allergy? We need to be crystal clear on this.
Absolutely not. And this is a vital point for everyone's understanding. It is emphatically not a true immune-mediated allergy. It's not like a peanut or shellfish allergy that can be fatal. Your immune system is not involved.
So what is happening then?
It's a temporary state. Because glutamate is an excitatory neurotransmitter, the system is just sparked too strongly, too fast. Think of it like a momentary short circuit. You're hitting the engine with way too much gas all at once. It's an overreaction to a neurotransmitter surge, and while it's deeply uncomfortable, it resolves. The system just gets overwhelmed for a bit, then it recovers.
That's a really important clarification.
Right.
It frames the safety as an issue of sensitivity and dosage, not an inherent allergic threat. Okay, so we have the overwhelming flavor and the temporary nervous system surge. But now we get to the thing that I think plagues most of us the morning after a great savory meal, that intense, overwhelming thirst. This is chapter 3, the stealth sodium, the hidden element.
It's the most common complaint, yeah. And everyone blames some weird chemical irritant in their throat. But the answer, like you said, is right there in the name. Monosodium glutamate.
It's hiding in plain sight.
Yeah.
So how much sodium are we actually talking about compared to, say, regular table salt?
Well, table salt is about 40% sodium by weight. MSG is around 1/3 sodium, so roughly 33%. That is a massive amount of sodium. The thing is, you often use less of it than salt to get a similar flavor boost, but you're still ingesting a huge sodium load, make no mistake.
Okay, but here's the key, right? The real trick of the stealth sodium. If it's got so much sodium, why doesn't the dish taste overwhelmingly salty?
That's the genius of the biohack. The umami flavor from the glutamate is so satisfying, so deep and rounded, that it actually masks the perception of simple saltiness on your tongue.
So you get the proteinier signal, but the too much salt. Alarm bells just don't go off.
They don't ring at all, which allows people to just keep adding more, thinking they're only adding flavor when really they're building a sodium mountain. And think about it, in almost every recipe, MSG is added on top of existing salt or soy sauce or fish sauce. It all stacks up.
And creates an immediate acute sodium load in the bloodstream. So what happens in the body when it gets hit with that hypersalty blood?
Physiologically, your blood basically panics. It needs to maintain a very specific saline balance, and suddenly it's way too salty. To dilute it quickly, your body has to pull water out from wherever it can find it. And the easiest source, your own cells.
Wait, you're saying my cells are literally shriveling up because my blood is stealing their water?
Precisely, they dehydrate, just for a moment. But that's a survival emergency for a cell. When the cells start to shrivel, the body's master regulator, the hypothalamus in your brain, it detects this and it immediately tries out. It orders a massive immediate intake of water.
So that desperate need for a glass of water in the middle of the night, that's my brain trying to rescue my shriveling cells.
It is pure, severe, temporary cellular dehydration driven by that hidden sodium. It's a perfectly orchestrated mechanism that tells you exactly how much sodium you just ate long after your tongue stopped tasting it.
That completely shifts the debate from, is it toxic, to how does it fundamentally mess with my body's chemistry? So let's bring it all together. Chapter 4. The verdict, the benefits, and the essential warnings.
The conclusion from chemists and regulators is pretty consistent. MSG is a food technology. It is chemically clean, it's pure, and when you consume it moderately, it's generally recognized as safe or GRAS by all the major regulatory bodies. The safety issue is really about dosage and pre-existing conditions, not toxicity.
Let's start with the good, though, because it does offer real benefits for certain people.
Absolutely. The key positive use is its ability to dramatically stimulate weakened taste buds. This is invaluable for, say, elderly individuals or patients with compromised appetites. That intense glutamate signal can be the difference between eating enough to stay healthy and not eating at all. It makes food palatable again.
That's a really important point that gets lost in the public debate. But on the flip side, the negative implications for the general population.
There are two big drawbacks. First, as we've said, it's an incredibly effective sodium trap. It makes it dangerously easy to blow past your daily sodium limits without even realizing it.
And the second point, which is more behavioral.
It fundamentally affects your eating behavior. By constantly hitting your palate with this intense flavor hack, your brain gets used to it, maybe even addicted to it. Natural, subtle foods start to taste bland, boring. You end up distorting your own palate, always chasing that next big umami high.
That's a real consequence, losing that appreciation for subtle flavors. Okay, let's get specific. Who really needs to be careful with MSG?
People who get migraines or have high blood pressure need to be extremely cautious. They should probably avoid it entirely. Remember, glutamate is a known vascular trigger. For some people, that surge can cause blood vessels in the brain to expand.
Vasodilation.
Right, vasodilation, which is the direct cause of that throbbing migraine headache.
And the sodium is obviously a concern for high blood pressure.
Of course. And the final, sharpest warning from our sources was about quantity.
The difference between heaven and hell.
Exactly. A tip of a teaspoon is culinary bliss, but the sources explicitly warn that a ladle is hell for the kidneys. The kidneys have to manage that overwhelming sodium load, and for anyone with compromised kidney function, this can be a severe, immediate threat.
This has been a profoundly useful breakdown. So what's the core practical message you want our listeners to walk away with?
The core message is pretty simple. It is not a poison. You can eat it. It's safe in moderation, but you cannot let it trick you into ignoring how much you're consuming. You just have to be mindful of the dose.
And for those moments when you do go overboard, you have the massive bowl of soup, you feel the fresh, the thirst hits. What's the practical antidote?
Water. Just lots of plain, simple water. That's the best remedy. If your body is dealing with an acute sodium load, you have to dilute that salt and rehydrate your cells. Drinking plenty of water is the fastest way to restore that balance and help your kidneys flush everything out.
It's a perfect illustration, isn't it? Our sophisticated biology is just constantly battling with modern food technology. We have this perfect biohack that gives us intense pleasure.
But it comes with a built-in price tag cellular dehydration that your brain is always trying to make you pay for with that thirst.
And that awareness is everything.
It is, because while your tongue might be easily fooled, and it certainly lies about the salt content, your hypothalamus and your kidneys always speak the truth. It makes you wonder if the real cost of MSG isn't some physical illness, but maybe the lasting impact it has on your preference for powerful, intense flavors over the subtle, natural rewards you find in real food. And that's a thought worth chewing on.